mental health, which is a really important topic, all times of the year, but predominantly this time of year as well. I imagine people after the New Year, Christmas, and many other variables that would probably contribute towards some people maybe feeling down, but this is obviously important at all times of year. So Dr. Zoe Williams on the show, got to on board when we're talking about mental health and why it's important people get help. Can you give us a bit of insight, Dr. Zoe, why people should get help?
Yeah, so this is based on some recent research, which shows quite shocking really, that 52% of people, more than half of people, have felt concerned about their mental health in the last year. And obviously there's lots of things going on in the world and here at home at the moment that can make life difficult for people. And it's really to highlight that there is a service, an NHS service, which is free and confidential, that's available to people who are having difficulties with their mental health. It's called NHS Talking Therapies, and it's available either with a referral from your GP, or actually people can self-refer as well by going to nhs.uk/talk. So the chat this morning is really just, I think, to highlight that therapy is available, tell people a little bit about it, who can access therapy in the various different ways it can be delivered, and also just to say really that also in this research, those who'd accessed help for anxiety disorder or depression, over 2/3, 67%, said that they did feel an improvement in their mental health. So we know that this is the type of therapy that works for the majority of people.
No, absolutely. And I mean, the research suggests that obviously early intervention can improve outcome, and there is this available. And why do you think people don't, I mean, obviously every individual's different, it's hard to speak for everybody. As a general rule, why don't people seek help when the evidence suggests that, it can be useful, and obviously the earlier intervene, the better?
Yeah, absolutely right. The earlier the intervention, the better. And I think that is one of the things that stops people from coming forward and seeking help, is they think that they're not bad enough, or they don't need it as much as maybe somebody else. But we do know that if people seek help early on when they're struggling with their mental health, then actually the therapy is much more successful at getting them back on track in a shorter period of time. So that is one of the key messages I want to put out there. If you're honest with yourself, if you think you're struggling and you would benefit from a bit of help, please don't hesitate and reach forward. Obviously, there are waiting times in the NHS as well, so another reason to come forward sooner rather than later and seek that support that's out there. I think a lot of people don't necessarily know that they can seek mental health support for a whole range of conditions, so depression, excessive worry, social anxiety, post-traumatic stress, obsessions and compulsions. This research found that many people didn't know that you could also get support for if you feel like you're a hypochondriac, you're struggling with health anxiety, body dysmorphic disorder, agoraphobia. So if in doubt, anything that you're struggling with that's related to your mental health, in an ideal world, have a chat with your GP. But if you'd rather self-refer, there's absolutely no reason why you can't do that either. So again, to do that, just go online for more information, or to do the self-referral is nhs.uk/talk.
No, that's really helpful, Dr. Zoe. I think, people understand that they can self-refer as well. My guess is obviously also the stigma around mental health has still got a long way to go. Some people are probably, the stigma around saying that they're sort of struggling when I think the stats say it's 1 in 4 people at any given time are going to have some sort of mental health symptoms, or there's a research from a few years back, might have changed now with all the things going on in the world. But the other thing as well too, I was going to say, Zoe, you mentioned there obviously that people can self-refer and it could take a bit of time. I know it's probably outside the scope of our conversation, but just in terms of the NHS website, does it provide details of what people can do if they need to speak to someone immediately, for example, there are things like Samaritan's Mind and other stuff as well? Is there, say, if someone needs to speak to someone,
Yeah, so there are resources on there, and yes, there are so many charities and organisations who can provide immediate support. So you mentioned a couple there. So Samaritans are incredible. They're amazing. And there's always, if people are really, really struggling, so if people are feeling suicidal or feeling that they absolutely can't cope and they need help straight away, you can access support through your GP, but if you can't get to see them straight away, you can go via 111, 999 if it's an emergency, or you can turn up at an A&E department. There'll always be a mental health professional working in an A&E department. So for people who feel that they're absolutely can't wait, they need help right now, that's another option. There are lots of charities online. If you go to the Mind website, they list a lot of the charities. There are charities for children, for young people, for men. There's Calm, which is another great charity. There are so many resources out there. So I think the message I like to give is that there is always someone to talk to. And if you don't feel like you can talk to somebody in your family, your circle of friends, there is always somebody there to talk to. So never feel that you're completely on your own. But I think, with the NHS Talking Therapies, that's a service that's really set up for people before they get to that point. And I think many people do, like you mentioned, stigma, and absolutely there's still a lot of stigma around mental health. Things have improved a lot, but I still don't think we're at the point where people talk about how they're getting on with their mental health as part of their daily routine, and we're still not at the point where if you had a fractured wrist, most people will go and seek help, get an x-ray, get some support, have some physio. We're still not at the point where people will do the same for their mental health, and eventually hopefully we'll get there. But it's the same, we should think about an injury to our mental health in a similar way we would a physical injury. It is an injury, and often we need help and support to fix it, and a little bit of time and things can get better.
Absolutely, and I suppose another conversation for another day, Dr. Zoe, is probably up to the scope of today's conversation, is the way mental health is sort of diagnosed. So there are people that may not get a diagnosis who kind of slip under the radar, who do suffer from symptoms and other things as well. And I mean, that's sort of all the more for maybe like a self-referral to get on there and sort of go from there.
Yeah, I mean, there's differentiation to be made between people who have a mental health condition, such as depression, or, more severe mental health conditions like bipolar or schizophrenia. I think if you're struggling with your mental health, it's not for you as an individual to make a diagnosis. Maybe there is a diagnosis, maybe there isn't. Maybe it is more something like excessive worry, where you don't qualify for a diagnosis. Either way, there's support to help you at wherever you are on that spectrum. There is support. And if you self-refer to NHS Talking Therapies, at that initial assessment, if they think actually there's something more significant going on here that requires a psychiatrist or, more in-depth help, they'll let you know and they'll support you in what to do next to go towards getting that diagnosis. Absolutely.
And in the meantime as well, I think that things can change in mental health as well, can't they, in terms of people sort of, the earlier they get there, the better chance they've got, according to the research, of improving. So it's sort of, and things can change pretty quickly as well. But I think you made some really good points there, Dr. Zoe, and I think that one of the key takeaways, obviously, is sort of signposting people to the self-referral, getting more information as well, and obviously sort of like, probably a conversation around the day in terms of like, people just, I think, clarifying, understanding more about the sort of the diagnostic process in terms of that would probably sort of help people understand how
and I think at this point in the conversation, if people are listening and thinking, this is me, perhaps the final thing that holds them back is actually taking that next step and fear of what will happen. So my advice on that is to go online, fill out the form, have the assessment done. You're not obliged to carry on with treatment for that if you don't want to, but just knowing that treatment can be offered in so many different ways. So guided self-help, it can be delivered online, in person, either online, over the phone, or actually physically in person, or in groups. So once you've been assessed and your symptoms have been analysed, you will be recommended what is likely to be best for you, and also your preferences come into play there as well. So you're not signing up to sit in front of an individual for many weeks. Don't be afraid, just get that assessment done, and then at least somebody can give you some guidance as to what they think will benefit you from there.
That's really important. Just another brief thing, Dr. Zoe, I think that's really important too. If people do sign up for the assessment and then start to feel better, do you think it's important they still go through with it? They're still obviously having self-referred, if they've been referred, maybe they start to feel better within themselves. Do you think it's still important, if anyone sort of listening has done that, just go through the assessment, because you just never know how things can change again?
Yeah, absolutely. There will be people who apply for support, and actually in the interim, whilst they're waiting for their treatment to start, they get better and they don't need it anymore, and that's absolutely fine. In fact, that's fantastic. What it means is that you're in the system, and actually, for many people who've experienced whether it's anxiety, post-traumatic stress, there is a risk that it's going to come back. And I think taking that first step now, even if by the time therapy comes around you're feeling better, it makes it easier if things do recur. You've already taken that first step once before, you know what to expect. So yeah, please don't think that you don't deserve it, your symptoms aren't bad enough, or being afraid of what's to come. Just take that first step. Taking that first step is all you need to do, and then everything else will be automatic, will follow. Just take that one first step.
Brilliant. And just sort of finally, a reminder of the link again, please, Dr. Zoe, where can they go again to access more information?
Yep, so either go and visit your GP, or you can self-refer and get more information at nhs.uk/talk.
Brilliant. Thanks for your time, Dr. Zoe. It was really interesting and informative. I know that the listeners have sort of, will be very useful to a number of listeners if they're not aware of that. And I think, and my guess is that a lot of people probably aren't aware that they can sort of self-refer. And there is, a lot of support out there as well, if they sort of, like you said, if they check out the NHS website and obviously a lot of charities as well that do offer various levels of support. So thanks again for your time. It's been great speaking to you. Have a great day.
Thank you. And you.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.